deha. Kama kama krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati yagyartat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha tadhartam karma kaunteya Mukta sangha samacharaha yadyadacharati shreshtas tattadheve tarojana sayat pramanam kurute lokastadhanuvartate Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Iha Vairinam Saevayam Mayatedhya Yoga Prokta Puratanaha Bhaktosi Me Shakacheti Rahasyam Hietad Uttamam Vidya Vinaya Shampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Shuhrdam Sarvabhutanam Nyatva Mam Shantim Richati Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. For the next 2 weeks, when we recite, don't look at the verses and surprise yourself. Okay, I'll be leading, but you don't look at it. And at some point, I'll pause. You have to lead. I'll just tell the starting 1 or 2 words, and then let's see how we complete as a group. Even iPhone shouldn't be looked at. Okay. Sorry, I had a lot of questions emailed to me. For some reason, the internet in the ashram didn't work, so I'm still lagging in responding to your queries. I will do it today without fail. It's up and running. That's good news. All right. So today we are going to start the epitome of all yoga system, the pinnacle of any endeavor, as Srimad Bhagavatam says, culminates in Bhakti Yoga. So chapter 7, it's called as the knowledge of absolute. So if you remember, at the end of Chapter 6, Krishna says, who as the topmost yogi? One who thinks of him within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So if you go back to 647, If you go to the verse itself, the second line of the verse, what does it say? Madgatena antaratmana. If you read the translation, Madgatena means abiding in me, always thinking of me. In other words, one who always thinks of Krishna within himself. So he is the topmost of all the yogis. So Krishna says that. Now, somebody asked this question last week itself. From the looks of it, Ashtanga Yoga seems to be very difficult. Well, even if you practice it, you will still realize that it's still difficult. So Krishna says, of all the yogis, one who thinks of Krishna within himself, he is the topmost. Now, Bhakti Yoga, to contrast how easy it is to practice Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is going to take that word as the lead into the 7th chapter. So Krishna says, Madgaten Antaratmana. He is the topmost of all yogis in 6th chapter. In 7th chapter, Krishna is going to say, actually, you don't need to go through this strenuous process of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, all of that. Rather, there is a very, very easy way to still arrive at the same point of conclusion of any other type of yoga, which is to think of Krishna within himself. Okay, so in 7.1, Krishna will give the essence of all types of yoga, how to come to the point of thinking about him, but completely avoiding the rigorous process of Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, so the whole process of Bhakti Yoga starts with Shrinu, or hearing. I'll go in the reverse order. You'll understand why shortly. Maya Sakta, Mana, Yogam Yunjan Madashraya. Asamshayam, Yata Gyashashi, Samagram. So Krishna gives the crux of the entire Bhakti Yoga process in this one single verse. That's the genius of Krishna. I've just written the verse in reverse order. Maya Sakta Manapartha Yogam Yunjan Madashraya Asham Shayam Shamagram Mam Yata Gyashashi Tachrinu. But actually the way how it works is, it works in the reverse order. First we hear about Krishna. When we hear about Krishna, we know about Krishna in completion. When we know all our doubts are removed, and then we take shelter of Krishna, and then we try to practice Bhakti Yoga, then we'll come to Maya Sakta Mana, which is Madgatan Antaratmana. We'll be able to think of Krishna within our souls. Okay, so this is the verse which Krishna says, but Krishna says in this order, going by Sanskrit rules. But if we invert the verse, it clearly lists the 6 steps in Bhakti Yoga process. So, Shrinu means we hear about Krishna. How? Through Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Okay, so we hear from the spiritual master, we study the scriptures, and then we hear from other sadhakas also, other sadhus also. Who practices Bhakti Yoga, he is also, or he or she is also called sadhu. So we hear about Krishna. When we hear about Krishna, then Yata Jnasasi, we get complete knowledge. Samagram means complete. Yata Jnasasi, Jnasasi means knowledge about Krishna. So we get complete knowledge about Krishna. Then Ashamshayam. Ashamshayam is all doubts go away. Madashraya. Ashraya is shelter. So we take shelter of Krishna. Yogam Yunjan. We will then practice Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga. Maya Sakta Mana. Then we'll be able to think of Krishna within our mind. So it's the exact same conclusion which we can arrive. If you read the purports, there are a series of 5 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada quotes there, but they pretty much walk us through the exact same 6-stage process. So this is the 6 steps in any Bhakti Yoga. So as we can see, in what the Hatha Yogi or Ashtanga Yogi, the conclusion which he comes to after going through this strenuous 8-stage process, to come to the point of thinking of Krishna, it's very easy. Just come and attend scripture study course. That's all we have to do. simply hearing. Even if we sleep in the class, knowledge will still go in. Soul is still awake. Soul will still hear. We come through so many different examples that's given in the scriptures of devotees who, even though they were not consciously hearing, it still had an impact. Or even though they were not sitting and attending in class, it still had an impact. Okay, we see examples of Prahlad Maharaj. He was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu. Narada Muni was preaching to Kayadu. Kayadu went to sleep, but Prahlad Maharaj was awake. He was hearing. Okay, so simply by hearing, you don't need to go to forest. You don't need to do penance austerities for 60,000 years. You don't need to be a Naistik brahmachari. You don't need to sit on a deer skin. You don't need to sit with your body erect. You can sit on chair, no problem. Okay, we can eat. You don't need to fast. It's so easy. So Krishna, simply to contrast the ease with which one can attain the exact same, in fact, higher than that. In fact, the Bhakti Yoga starts from the culmination of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga comes to the point of realizing only Paramatma. Here, the moment we hear about Krishna, because Krishna's name, qualities, pastimes is non-different from him, simply by hearing about Krishna, we immediately become Bhagavan realized. So that's the topmost of all the yoga systems. So that's how Krishna contrasts it with any other process of yoga. Okay, so Krishna opens this Bhakti Yoga process by listing this 6-step process. First we hear about Krishna, then we know about Krishna in complete knowledge. By virtue of that, all our doubts are removed, and then we take exclusive shelter of Krishna, and then we then practice Bhakti Yoga with that full determination, commitment, conviction, and then we'll be able to think of Krishna. Remember, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That is the father of all rules, mother of all rules. Okay, so we'll come to that pinnacle of any process of Bhakti Yoga simply by hearing. Even in our Bhakti Yoga process, you will see there are 9 different types how one can practice Bhakti Yoga. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam. You will hear all of that. However, still even in that, Prabhupada explains, every other process comes from the Shrinu, which comes from hearing process only. And if we analyze it also, you will see, like for example, Shravanam, example that's given by Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion. Parikshit Maharaj. So, he heard about Krishna. From whom? From different devotees throughout his life, and especially from Shukadeva Goswami at the end. And then Kirtanam. He gives example of Shukadeva Goswami himself. Now, if you see how Shukadeva Goswami became expert in Kirtanam, how? Because he heard Srimad Bhagavatam. First from the lotus lips of Lord Shiva, and then from his own father also. And then his own father's disciples also. So still, even though he is known for his Kirtanam, his origin again is from Shravanam only. And for remembrance, we are not going to go through the whole list. I'll just tell you, you can continue with this analysis in your leisure. So you see, Prahlad Maharaj, he gives that as the example for Smaranam. That Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection simply by remembering. Okay. Now, how did he get to remember the Lord? Because he heard it again from Narada Muni when he was in the mother's womb. Correct? So likewise, if you analyze each and every step of the 9 processes, they connect. The origin is always from Shravanam. Origin is always from hearing. Okay, so hearing is very important. There is no replacement for hearing. Even of the 5 gross senses that we have, the first sense that gets activated as soon as we are conceived in a mother's womb is hearing. And when we are on our deathbed, the last sense to shut down is also hearing. So it's so important. Okay, so simply by hearing, Krishna says you can attain a perfection which far outperforms the achievement of a very sincere Ashtanga yogi. So hearing is always important. So first 3 verses, if you see, Krishna talks about the same process. First is, Krishna says, simply by hearing you will get knowledge. Now Krishna in verse 2 is going to tell us what sort of knowledge is that. So Krishna uses the word jnana and vigyan generally, or the knowledge about material as well as spiritual energy of the Lord. So anything in completion means knowledge about both. So there is, Krishna has got 2 types of energy. One is spiritual and the other is material. As long as we are in this world, we need to deal with both. Of course, we try to spiritualize every material energy that comes across our way. However, we still need to know the nature of both. Rupa Goswami says if someone shuns immaturely material energy and says like, nah, I'm not going to have anything to do with material energy at all, Rupa Goswami says then such person's realization is incomplete. We need to know. We are in this world. We need to know how earth, water, fire, air, ether, how it works. We need to know the materialistic designs of this world. And that helps us to avoid, to shun away bad things. So there are things which we can also learn from, there are lessons we can learn from bad things also in this world, how not to do things. Even when we study history, there are things which we can learn that worked for somebody, so we can try to mimic it. There are mistakes that were done by people in the past. We can avoid it easily. So we can always take lessons from both. So if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see a Brahmana taking so many Siksha Gurus, 24 Siksha Gurus actually. From everything he learns. Some Siksha Gurus, they give very positive niyamas. These are the things you are supposed to do. And from some Siksha Gurus, he learns things which he shouldn't try imitating. So we can learn from both. So Krishna says he has two types of energies. And he's about to actually reveal that knowledge to Arjuna. And Krishna will then say how rare it is. That's what Krishna says in the third verse. Krishna says it is so rare for somebody to be in full knowledge, because once somebody comes to full knowledge, naturally they will come and surrender to Krishna. In Vedic scriptures, there is an aphorism called Vidya Dadati Vinayam, which means knowledge leads to humility. However, modern education, if somebody gets 1 degree, 2 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees, it leads to pride. There is something wrong we are doing. So rather than leading to knowledge, modern education is taking one to become proud. So there is fundamentally wrong, something wrong in that. So Vidya Dadati Vinayam, which means if someone comes to knowledge of Krishna, we will understand how great Krishna is. Once somebody interviews Srila Prabhupada and they ask, why are you so serious, Prabhupada? One reporter. And initially when you come to the temple, one of the first experience I had, I visited Adelaide temple first time. I have said this story, shared this story with many of my friends, and they said they had similar experience. First time you come in, you bow down. All of us have doubt. If you have never heard of Prabhupada, you have this doubt, is the person real? How many of you had that issues? You know, he's not batting his eyelid and he's so realistic, and you don't know, you are scared. So a reporter asked that question to Prabhupada. So, Prabhupada, why are you so serious? Prabhupada says, a devotee of Krishna is very happy. However, when he knows the kind of master he has, the nature of the master, the greatness of the master, naturally that knowledge will lead one to humility. We will naturally understand how tiny we are. And that will lead to humility. That's why this knowledge of Krishna will lead one to humility. And that's very important. Trinadapi Sunichena. In that humility, we'll be able to chant Hare Krishna. So we can't completely say only chanting Hare Krishna alone is actually enough for us. It is enough, but we are not in that platform. Whatever help that we can use to take us closer to that step, we should take. Otherwise, it's again pride. We say nah, I'm not going to do. So it's not like that. There's a process that's given, we simply follow. Because Prabhupada says, walking on this path of Krishna consciousness, in one purport Prabhupada writes there, Mayavadi says it's very easy, sentimental process, it's very easy, anybody can do. Prabhupada says, if it's so easy, why don't you follow? It's very easy to sit on the sideline and say yeah, that's very easy, sour grapes. But Prabhupada says, the process of Krishna consciousness is actually very difficult. It's like walking on razor's edge, Prabhupada says. There's Krishna, Prabhupada says, you just miss an inch, there's Maya right next to him. It's a problem. Oops, sorry Mataji, and then you move this side. It's a problem. So we have to be very, very careful how we practice, and that's why we need association. Because many times we were seeing last week how the mind will always tell us only one version of reality. And there'll be, let's say there's an event that happens, there are 5 different angles, mind will always tell us only one single way. And it will never allow us to accept any other perspective. And many of the relationship problems happen because of that actually. When we are slightly open-minded to not trust our mind, then we can solve a lot of problems in our life, even in any form of relationship actually. So this knowledge which leads one to humility is what Krishna is about to reveal. is what Krishna is about to tell Arjuna. And he's saying it's very confidential. Why is it confidential? Because if a person from knowledge goes to humility, which is, he becomes he gets the jnana, the knowledge. What will he naturally do? He'll naturally become a Hare Krishna devotee. But then once somebody practices process of bhakti, he can control Krishna. So Krishna is not ready to give his control to anybody and everybody. Only to those who are sincere at heart, only those who Krishna knows, this person is non-envious of me. Krishna is ready to reveal himself. Radhanath Maharaj says very beautifully that Krishna consciousness is not achieved, it is awarded. There is a difference. Achieved means, Prabhupada says, once Prabhupada was going for a morning walk and he asks one of his disciples who was carrying her baby, so how do you carry your baby? Monkey style or cat style? And his disciple didn't understand, and Prabhupada explains, monkeys, how do they carry the babies? Mother monkey will jump from one branch to another. Baby monkey will be holding on to the mother monkey on its own might. How much ever power it has, it can. And many times the babies can't actually cope up with the speed with which the mother monkey goes, and it falls. Prabhupada says, that's one way of carrying. The other way of carrying, Hare Krishna Prabhu. The other way of carrying babies is like how a cat carries the kitten. How does a cat carry the kitten? With the mouth. And what does the baby kitten do? Happy. So, Prabhupada says, like a cat carries a baby kitten, that's what Krishna is actually doing for Bhakti Yogis. Whereas all other different forms of yoga, be it Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, everything, they are all following the monkey style, wherein they are trying to achieve perfection out of one's own endeavor. And Prabhupada says, as like the baby monkey is sure to fall at some time, all other process of yogas is actually sure to fail if it's not mixed with the bhakti. Once somehow or other they connect themselves with the process of bhakti yoga, then they are guaranteed success. Okay, so that takes us to the next section. So Prabhupada here beautifully he explains in this next section, knowledge of Krishna leads one to take shelter of him. So let's read 4th verse. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence and false ego. Altogether these 8 constitute my separated material energies. If you read this book, Perfect Question, Perfect Answers, it's a famous conversation between Prabhupada and Bob Cohen, who later became initiated by Prabhupada, Brahmatirtha Prabhu. So there, Prabhupada gives an example. If you take a cow gives her milk. Milk is the separated energy of the cow. And Prabhupada gives another example. You record Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada is saying, and in tape recorder you play back my voice. Then Prabhupada says, that voice is my separated energy. So same way, Krishna is saying earth, water, fire, air, ether. All these 8 elements, they are his separated energies. So Prabhupada gives that beautiful analogy to understand, just like how in that conversation when he has, suddenly I think Malati Mataji, she brings a cup of milk. So Prabhupada says, see, this is separated energy of the cow. So that's how Prabhupada actually explains the separated energy. So Krishna is saying all these 5 gross elements, they are his separated energies. And Krishna will then continue about, this is about gross material energy, means it's material obviously. Krishna then says all the living entities, which is us as well as the 8.4 million species of life, they are his spiritual energies. Generally, spiritual energy is far superior than material energy. Not generally, actually, always. However, material energy is Maya. We always see ourselves under the influence of Maya. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidura asked the same question to Maitreya. How is it possible for a living entity to come under the control of material energy? Even though living entity is superior. Krishna himself says, if you read this verse, 6th verse, Krishna says, all created beings, 5th verse. Besides this, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine. What is Krishna saying superior to? The previous verse, which is all the material energy. So he's saying this energy is superior, and this comprises living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So technically, we are superior to material energy. However, by Krishna's arrangement, the order is reversed. When we come into this material energy, just like how a magnet, if you have a magnetic field, you have a small iron particle, as soon as it comes into that field, it gets attracted, it gets influenced by that. So same way, even though soul by nature is very powerful, much more powerful than the material energy, as soon as it comes within the realm of this material world, the order gets reversed, it gets influenced. So Maitreya explains that yes, naturally it's not possible, however, by special arrangement it is. And then he says, Krishna put it that way because Krishna, we wanted to enjoy away from Krishna, so Krishna had to create such an environment wherein there is always that constant impetus for us to remember Krishna. So that's why the order is reversed completely, wherein material energy is overpowering us, but by taking shelter of Krishna, we see in the 14th verse, Krishna says it is possible to reverse the order, to go back to our natural position wherein we are superior and material energy is inferior. So Krishna says in the next verse that every created being have their source in these two natures, which means every embodied living entity is a combination of both material as well as the spiritual energy. It has a material body made of one of these 8 gross or subtle elements, and it has a soul. So Krishna says, he gives the principle here clearly. First he says 8 material elements, then he says the soul, and then he says everyone is just a combination of these two nature. Now 7.7 verse is very interesting. Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam shudre mani ganaiva. So the first half of this verse, Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya, it's just the essence of the previous 3 verses. So if you read the translation, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. So basically, Krishna is combining, capsulating all the previous 3 verses into this one half of the verse. So the previous 3 verses are 4, 5, 6. They are the first half of 7.7. And the second half of 7.7. So one half is 7.4 to 6. The second half is the 7.5 to 11. I'm sorry, 7.7 to 11. So one half of 7.7, the first half actually is just a summation of the previous 3 verses, and the next half of 7.7 is the summation of these 4. He'll just elaborate on that. So here Krishna says there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests on me like pearls strung on a thread. So Krishna then gives a few examples to explain how he is pervading in this material world. So first example Krishna gives is, O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, I am the sound in ether and ability in man. Modern science teaches us that water is a tasteless fluid. But interestingly, Krishna is saying, I am the taste of water. So Krishna is challenging directly. Ayurveda says every food element that we actually take that has its taste originates from water. So without water, there's even a book called Salted Bread. If you see there, you'll see there when they get the dried bread, the only way for them to flavor that is by pouring water in it. When your mouth is completely dry, you try eating something, you won't taste much. You can't actually take the essence of that at all. That's why tongue has to be wet all the time in order to taste. So Krishna is saying he's the taste. Likewise, Krishna is saying, I am the light of the sun and the moon. So Krishna says he's the most defining element of everyone and everything. So what's the speciality of sun and moon? It's light. So same way for water, what's the most defining element? Taste. So Krishna will always say, I'm the ability in men. What's the most defining element of a person? Is the urge, the impetus which he has to do something. The sense of wanting to do something. So Krishna is saying, I'm that. So likewise, Krishna gives a few list of examples. Once in one class, Prabhupada says that look at Krishna's artistry. Every flower is painted by Krishna. And then one disciple actually asks that, Prabhupada, does that mean Krishna himself comes and he paints literally? Like our famous painter here. Who have we got? Varahadev today. So Prabhupada says, Krishna doesn't have to exert himself. Krishna has all of these different Shakti, Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, everything. Just like even in this material world, if you see, you push a button that says print. You are sitting in one place, printer is in the other room. With the push of a button, you get something else outside. Likewise, Krishna has the technology. He thinks something. The moment when he actually thinks to the time when that thought becomes a reality, practically it happens immediately, instantly. For us, time separates. And sometimes we get what we desire and sometimes we don't. So Krishna has that Icha Shakti. Prabhupada says, look at the potency of Krishna. Morning he sends just one ray of sunlight. That's all he has to send. And Prabhupada says, all the green mangoes become yellow. Just one ray of sunlight throughout the world. One ray of sunlight, Prabhupada says, yellow mango becomes red. One ray of sunlight, Prabhupada says, closed flowers opens immediately. And pigments start to get created there. Prabhupada says, same way, you take moon, one ray of moon, it turns certain herbs as medicinal. And Prabhupada says, one ray of moon, it brings juice into all the food material that's there. We'll study that in 9th chapter. So Prabhupada says, Krishna doesn't have to exert himself so much. Just with a simple glance, he maintains this whole world. So Krishna does all these uncommon things, but very effortlessly also. That's why one of Krishna's name is Urukrama. Urukrama means one who does very uncommon things, but Urukrama. Very uncommon things, effortlessly also. You see, people who do long jump, they have to run like 20 yards or maybe 50 yards to cross 20 yards. Or cross 15 yards, cross 10 yards. You see, Vamanadev, he just stood in one place, he just scaled the whole universe without even moving an inch here or there, effortlessly. So that's the power, that's the potency of Krishna. So Krishna gives a few more examples. Rasaham apasa kauntaya. Next verse, if you see, I'm the original fragrance of earth. Again, if you take any flower, the fragrance of the flower doesn't come from the seed. Rather, it comes from the earth. That's what Krishna is saying. But the seed actually goes, and the seed is actually programmed to extract a certain type of fragrance from the earth, and then it manifests that in the form of a flower. So same way, the same seed goes in, takes it, and it brings a certain fragrance in a fruit, certain taste in certain food material, so on and so forth. So, I am the original fragrance of the earth, I am the heat in fire. So Krishna gives a few more examples like this here. And then in 10th verse, Krishna says, O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent. Again, Krishna is having these three potencies, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Some religion, they accept Krishna that he is all powerful. They accept that he is knowing everything, but they don't accept that he is present everywhere. They limit him to a certain place of worship or to certain place in this Vedic cosmology. But Krishna is actually saying he's having all these three potencies. And we were discussing this before. We have no issue with accepting Krishna's omnipresence. We know Krishna in the form of Paramatma, even as practicing devotees, we'll easily understand. We know Krishna is omnipotent. Okay, we don't argue. Krishna, do you really lift Govardhan hill? We don't have any issue accepting it. However, we have a lot of problem accepting this potency of Krishna. We even challenge him. We have some difficulties in life, we go and offer prayers to Krishna. And then we get upset when Krishna doesn't fulfill the prayer. And we even ask Krishna, Krishna, don't you understand what I actually want? But Krishna knows. Krishna here, he is saying, what is he saying? He is the intelligence of the intelligent. And we are still having problem understanding, does Krishna really know what I need? Does Krishna really understands what I want? We offer our prayers, we tend to think sometimes, is my prayer having any value at all? Scriptures say clearly, whatever we speak to Krishna, Krishna hears all of that. We may not speak in bhakti, full, endowed with pure form of bhakti. Still, Krishna hears everything and he fulfills also all the desires. However, in the best possible way. That's suitable and favorable for our Krishna consciousness. So when we offer a prayer to Krishna, we should have that faith. Yes, this prayer is going to get answered. When and how matters. Now, putting the trust in this aspect of knowledge, that's why knowledge is very important. If we have this knowledge that Krishna is the intelligence of the intelligent, which means you take the most intelligent person, his intelligence is originating from Krishna. Which means I can never match that intelligence. Why? Because I'm not the most intelligent person. So on the strength of this knowledge, we will see our faith getting more and more deeper. That's why this knowledge is very important. So when we offer our prayer to Krishna, when we bring anything to Krishna, we should have that faith that Krishna is omniscient. He knows everything. As Paramatma, he is everywhere. As Brahman, in fact, the very name Vishnu means one who pervades everywhere. That's what it, in Sanskrit it means. So the very name itself actually clearly tells us that Krishna knows, he is everywhere and he knows everything. So we need to put that faith in Krishna, understanding about his potency of omniscience, then we'll be able to do. In Mahabharata, there is a story. Once Arjuna goes with Krishna to a forest, and then they come across a very deep, dark well, dried up well. And there is a big boulder just at the rim of that well. And Krishna asks Arjuna to move that big stone. So Arjuna goes with all his might, he moves. And Arjuna was shocked to see a small ant carrying a grain of rice. So then Arjuna asks Krishna, how are you providing such a tiny ant, small grain of rice in this remote part of the world? There is no rice field, no nothing anywhere. Prabhupada also gives this example that in Africa, there are elephants and that will eat tons and tons of grasses. And Krishna is feeding all of them. Why are people worried about a population problem? Prabhupada is saying, this world is equipped to host 10 times the current population, Prabhupada was saying. So Prabhupada says all these birth control methods which people actually come to stop the growing population and everything, Prabhupada is saying they are all demoniac. Krishna is capable of supporting this entire universe with just a single fragment of himself. Krishna himself says that in the opulence of the Absolute chapter. So we have to put that trust in Krishna, and then we will see, as we put that trust in Krishna, we will see whatever we understood it in theory becomes a reality. With that little knowledge, little realization, we will see our faith is actually going considerably deeper. And then we develop more knowledge, we study, we understand, doubts slowly get removed, and that's how we started this chapter. And we'll see slowly, as we bring Krishna in every sphere of life, as we bring Krishna in every aspect of our life, we will see Krishna is actually present everywhere. Krishna's omnipresence we'll realize, Krishna's omnipotence we'll realize. Can Krishna really control my boss? Of course he can. Can Krishna really fix my relationship with my partner? Krishna can. Can Krishna find me a job? He can. Can Krishna cure me of whatever mental distress I have? He can. That's what it means, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresence. And it's important, it's a very simple knowledge, but if we see the application of it, we'll see it has unlimited applications. So that's why this knowledge is important. And Krishna says, after giving all these examples, the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire, Krishna finally gives the principle of all these previous verses examples. So Krishna in 12th chapter, he says, I'm independent, I'm not under the modes of material nature, for they are on the contrary within me. So that brings an end to this chapter, or rather this section of the chapter. So naturally, if somebody will ask, if Krishna is so powerful, if he provides everything to everyone, if he can fix everything that's broken, if he can maintain all these living entities in both gross as well as in subtle sense, why isn't everyone surrendering to Krishna? So that question naturally comes. So Krishna, to answer that, he speaks the 13th verse. So if you see 13th verse, Krishna says, deluded by three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So Krishna says, yes, if somebody comes to this knowledge, naturally he'll surrender to me. However, deluded by the modes, people get carried away. Even as practicing devotees, we can see. We chant Hare Krishna, we know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You go to school, go to uni, go to office, some difficulty comes, immediately we become fearful. And Nectar of Devotion clearly explains that forgetfulness of Krishna is the cause of fear. If we can remember Krishna, how do we remember Krishna? Prabhupada says, chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada kept everything simple. Simply by remembering Krishna, by chanting Hare Krishna, discussing about him, applying this knowledge, we will not lose track of Krishna, and we will see as we take one step after the other in our life. And this aspect of fearlessness was demonstrated by many devotees of Krishna. You take Prahlad Maharaj. How much was he subject to abuse? Physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological, so much. You take the example of Dhruva Maharaj. What all he had to go through. You take Pandavas. Every devotee was actually put into difficulty. However, how they responded, that's what differentiated them. One good thing with scriptures is, scriptures never leave any story in loose end. You take Bhagavatam. There'll be a devotee who practices Krishna consciousness, God's diverted for some reason, distracted, and then he went through a lot of difficulties, and then what happened? Again comes back to Krishna consciousness and goes back to Godhead. This is how you will see. You will never see any story with the sad ending in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's how positive it is. Srimad Bhagavatam is the compilation of different case studies of different devotees, the type of difficulties they came across, the type, how they responded to it, and how they bounced back. So fall down means when we refuse to bounce back. If you take a little child, how many times does the child fall down to even take 5 steps? From the place where he actually starts to walk, it'll perhaps fall down 20 times before it scales 5 steps. But when we are a child, we are ready to keep on trying. But then as we grow older, rather than increasing that resilience, somehow it gets decreased. That's why we have to come in association, be in association. It's natural to find difficulty. Krishna is saying in the next verse, if you read, this divine energy of mine, consisting of 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. Mind you, Krishna is saying it's difficult. It got to be difficult. So we don't need to experiment there. It is difficult. However, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So Krishna is clearly telling us how to convert our weakness into strength. How these points of vulnerability give us opportunity to take shelter of Krishna. We know Kunti Maharani's famous prayers. Let all the difficulties come to me. I don't think I'll ever dare to offer that prayer. But that's what she says. Krishna, keep me happy, I'll still be surrendered. This is where we are. So it's good to understand our level. But Kunti Maharani says, clearly understanding, epitomizing this verse actually. May all the difficulties come to me repeatedly, over and over again. Why? When all of that happens, I will take shelter of you. That way I'll be able to remember you. And whoever who sees you, she plays with words actually. Whoever who sees you, never have to see this material world again. She says that. So somehow if we remember this knowledge about Krishna, this potency of Krishna, this Aishwarya Jnana, this knowledge of opulence of the Supreme Lord, how powerful he is. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, he says, do not tell Krishna how big your problem is. Tell your problem how big Krishna is. I'll repeat, do not tell Krishna how big your problem is. Tell your problem how big Krishna is. So when we are grounded in that knowledge of Krishna, then we'll respond to whatever challenges that we actually come across in our life in a much different way. In a very, very mature way, in a very, very meaningful way. And we know how to turn our weakness into strength. So Krishna here, he's saying, yes, this is very difficult. However, if you take my shelter, you will be able to cross very easily beyond it. Now Krishna next in the 15th to 19th verse, Krishna gives examples of a few people who surrender to him and those who don't surrender to him. So Krishna tells 4 types of people, Namam Dushkritino Muda. Prabhupada sometimes when he gets told, Prabhupada, you are using harsh words. Why are you calling people fools and rascals? Prabhupada sometimes used to quote these verses. See, even Krishna is calling them fool. Once Prabhupada was going, I think, to Montreal. This is in very beginning days. And Prabhupada is waiting in the airport, waiting for the flight. He has the boarding pass sitting. A reporter comes to him and he says, so, Swamiji, if we chant Hare Krishna, I'll be free from all these material miseries. So Prabhupada says, yes. And the person then says, Mahamantra fully, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Swamiji, but I still have distress. Prabhupada says, don't be stupid. Prabhupada says, you look at this, I have the boarding pass. I'm soon about to board a flight that's actually heading for Montreal. Just because I have this boarding pass, it means I'm almost in Montreal. I'm in the proper process. Give me some time, give me another 5-6 hours, I'll be in Montreal. So Prabhupada says, when you take up this chanting of Hare Krishna, it's almost like holding a boarding pass. Very good analogy. Acharya, true to the word. So Prabhupada says, if you simply take to this process, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, you already have the boarding pass. It's just a matter of time. Before you board the flight, before the flight takes off, and then it lands on the destination. So same way, if we somehow catch hold of the lotus feet of Prabhupada, catch hold at the lotus feet of Krishna, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this whole world, Bhupadao, he uses the word, which means this whole world is like the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And we are all seated at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That's how he says. So every single thing, Prabhupada says it's very easy to remember Krishna. Krishna says, I'm the taste of water. Take water, whenever you drink water, remember, I'm tasting Krishna. So same way Prabhupada says, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. Whenever you look at sun, look at moon, Prabhupada says, just remember Krishna. Likewise, if we somehow or other connect everything to Krishna, then we'll become Krishna conscious all the time. Once a devotee also asks, so Prabhupada, when you say we see Krishna everywhere, does that mean we see, let us say if Krishna is in this pillar and Krishna is in this picture, does that mean we see one Krishna there, and a Krishna which is like an amalgamated between the two? Physically, when you try to understand. Prabhupada again gives a beautiful analogy. Prabhupada says, you take the shoes. Whose shoes are there? They say, it's your shoes, Prabhupada. Whose stick is this? This is your stick. And Prabhupada says, whose clothes are this? This is your clothes. So whenever you see this, you'll remember me, relating it to me. So Prabhupada says, likewise, you relate everything to Krishna and understand Krishna. You be conscious of Krishna. Prabhupada always says, Krishna consciousness is very easy for the simple-minded, but very complicated for the crooked-minded. If we start to think that way, is it merging here and everything? It confuses us. But Prabhupada says it's very, very simple. Krishna consciousness is very, very simple. And that simplicity deludes us sometimes, because nothing is simple in this material world. That's the problem. Okay, let's move to the next section. So Prabhupada here, he says there are 4 types of people who don't surrender to Krishna. The miscreants who are grossly foolish. Prabhupada gives the example of a donkey, an ass. Just for a handful of grass, it goes, works, carries the load for the master throughout the day for such a long time. And Prabhupada says the foolish donkey doesn't know the same grass is available on a pasture ground. It can just walk and eat anywhere. It doesn't have to work. That's why Prabhupada says it's foolish. When the grass is available in abundance elsewhere, why is it working so hard to get the same grass at the end of the day after carrying so much load? So Prabhupada says, Krishna maintains everyone. Why do you have to work so hard? So that's the first type of people who are lowest among mankind. That's for the people who have no faith in the scriptures at all, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, which is interesting because knowledge is supposed to help us to go away from Maya. Prabhupada defines in the earlier chapters, knowledge means to understand matter, to understand soul, and the difference between both. Correct? Now imagine if the same knowledge teaches you that you are matter, which means your knowledge is stolen by illusion. So that's the third category of what Prabhupada is saying here. So rather than knowledge elevating us, it actually binds us to matter. So Prabhupada says that's the problem with modern education. It doesn't teach us who we are. It doesn't teach us about spiritual energy at all. So rather than liberating us, it is binding us. So that's the third category. And who partake the atheistic nature of demons do not surrender unto me. So that's the fourth category of which Prabhupada says, and they are openly atheistic. Prabhupada tells many people they claim themselves as atheists and they don't accept the superiority of the Lord. Again, if somebody has even little knowledge, we immediately understand the greatness of Krishna, we'll naturally become humble. However, there are people who just want to shun away any sense of responsibility, because once you have knowledge, there is a responsibility that comes with that. So nobody wants to take ownership, so they shun the knowledge itself and they say like, nah, I don't believe in this. I don't want to follow this. So Prabhupada says these are the fourth category of people. Now in contrast to that, Krishna then lists 4 types of people who come to him. Chaturvida bhajante mam jana shukritino arjuna artho jignasur artarthi jnani cha bharata rishabha. Those who are distressed. Chaturvida bhajante mam jana shukritino Arjuna. Artho jignasu, those who are inquisitive. Jnani, who is the fourth type? Artho jignasu artharthi, one who is desiring some material things. Those who have some sort of material desire. So they come under these four categories. And Krishna says these four categories of people come to him. And Rupa Goswami, in Nectar of Devotion, he gives example of 4 devotees who came to Krishna who fall under each one of these. For distressed, Rupa Goswami uses the word, or rather uses the example of Gajendra. We all know the story of an elephant. There you see, who was a king in its previous birth, whose leg is caught by a crocodile. What's crocodile's name? Huhu. Nice name. It's a Gandharva. There is a story. His friend's name is Haha. So in Bahulavan, Vrindavan, there is another story that's linked. Some other time we can discuss. So there is a battle that goes on between the elephant and the crocodile for 100 celestial years, and at the end, Gajendra realizes that his end is near. So he takes ultimate shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, remembering one of the previous verses it's memorized in the previous life. So please do memorize the verses, at least Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So then he offers that to Vishnu, and Vishnu comes and he protects. So Gajendra, he gives us the example of somebody who is distressed. What's the second type? Inquisitive. The sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi. So you will see these sages, they come and inquire from Sutta Goswami. So inquisitive means casual inquiry. You know, you just walk to a place and say like, hey, what's going on? That's casual inquiry. That's inquisitive. So that's the category that these sages fall under initially. But after they start hearing, they also become devotees. But in Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami gives sages as the example of those who fall under inquisitive category. Third one is material things. Dhruva Maharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam explains about King Dhruva, who then goes to Madhuvan because he wanted to get a kingdom greater than that of his grandfather, Brahma. So he goes to the forest, he goes to Madhuvan, one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan. There he performs tapasya. And in 6 months' time, simply by chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, he then sees the Supreme Lord. This form of Lord who appeared before him, his name is Prishnigarbha. So that's the Supreme Lord, and then he gets his desires fulfilled. But then once he sees the Supreme Lord, he gets detached from all his material desires. So that's the third category. And final one is Jnani. Jnani, 4 Kumaras. We saw them even before. Now, the difference between inquisitiveness and one who's seeking the absolute truth, or one who's the knowledge seeker. As I said, inquisitiveness is very casual inquiry. One who actually seeks knowledge, he has a serious inquiry. He actually searches for knowledge. He really wants to know who is it that's controlling all this? Where did I come from? So the inquiry is serious. So Krishna says of these 4 types of people, the one who is actually seeking knowledge, he is far superior than the other 3. Why? The one who is in distress, of course Gajendra doesn't fall in this category in general, as a principle. One who is distressed, he comes to Krishna. Krishna takes the distress away. What does the person do? I have no problem, they just walk away. Sometimes you come across even visitors in the temple. Oh, Prabhu, Mataji, I didn't see you for a long time. Oh, no problem, I didn't have any problem, so I didn't come. So, problem is, it finishes, it starts, the bhakti starts and finishes there itself. So, same way, inquisitiveness. They have that curiosity, what's going on there? Okay, fine, and they just walk away. So, once the purpose is solved, they'll give up the process of bhakti. So, same way, someone who comes for material things. When as soon as their material desires get fulfilled, they just give up and they walk away. Whereas someone who is in knowledge, who is seeking knowledge, he comes to know about Krishna. What does he do? Gives up Krishna and goes away? No. Surrenders to him. Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Krishna says that. Okay? He surrenders to him. So that's why Krishna says, those who jnani cha bharata rijabha. Now, Krishna uses the word jnani, but we should not confuse this with the jnanis we saw in the previous chapters. Jnanis generally have 2 aspects to their knowledge. One is jnana, and they have bhakti also. In other words, they have knowledge as well as devotion. The jnani who Krishna is talking about in this verse are those whose bhakti supersedes the jnana. In other words, it's not a 50-50 proportion of jnana and bhakti they have, rather maybe 60-40, 80-20, maybe 99 and just 1% jnana. That's the category who Krishna is speaking about here. Okay, so this is one different types of devotees. So 4 types of devotees. Even though all 4 of them, they are not pure, Krishna still calls them Udara, magnanimous souls. Ramanujacharya says that Krishna is so hungry for bhakti, even if people come to him for any material desires, he is calling them magnanimous. Because coming to Krishna, at least for one reason or the other, they come to Krishna. Krishna gives them credit that way. And how do they become pure? Krishna says by taking shelter of his devotees. In the association of devotees, once they come in that association, slowly, they will climb up the ladder and they'll come to the platform of pure bhakti. Krishna in the next section talks about demigod worship from verse 20 to 25 and impersonalism. Because it's a casual inquiry. You just want to know, you go shopping sometimes, you see, these days sometimes they put the name of the stall, it won't be that self-explanatory. And you go in and you see like, so what are you selling? Okay, this one doesn't interest me, you just walk away. That's inquiry, casual inquiry. So that's curiosity. Basically, that's all. Okay, so in 20 to 25, Krishna speaks about demigod worship. Now in this section, we'll understand the compassionate nature of Krishna. Krishna first says, why does a person, even knowing after Krishna about his greatness, about his potency and everything, still why does he go to worshipping a demigod? Krishna says, because they want immediate, quick results. Doesn't mind whether it's good or bad for them. They want quick results. Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, they are replete with examples of people who worship demigods. They get a boon, but then the boon costs their own undoing. The boon cost, instead of being beneficial to them, cost to their downfall. Many instances we see. We saw example of Shabari Muni. And if you take any Asura, you take Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, each Ravana, each one of them, they had a boon from one of the demigod. But there's no after-sale service, that's the problem. Like if you misuse it, you can't call a customer service number. Hey, dude, please save me. Nobody's going to come and help us. Whereas if you pray to Krishna, Krishna will give us only whatever that's best for us, whatever that will help us come closer to him. What will happen if somebody goes to Krishna and asks for anything material? Krishna will fulfill the desire in such a way that the person will lose taste for it, like in the case of Dhruva Maharaj. Or Krishna will attract the soul to him and the person will forget about the material desires. One of the aphorisms that's used for the Supreme Lord, especially Lord Damodar, is Atma Paryanta Sarva Chitta Hari. The Lord's activities are so beautiful, so captivating, that it attracts the minds of everyone, even his own mind. That's what it means. Sarva Paryanta, including his own mind. He gets attracted to his own activities. So that's the beauty of Krishna. So Krishna, depending on the individual, he sometimes fulfills it to a certain extent and then brings them closer, or sometimes he makes them forget and then he brings them closer also. Now in demigod worship, let's say there is a person here who is a demigod worshipper. Well, you should not have a smiley. So he goes, worships a demigod. Now if we understand based on our jnana from the second chapter, okay, first of all, we are not the body, we are the soul. So there is a soul in the worshipper's body, the red dot, and there is a soul in demigod's body also. Both are jivas. One is in a human form, another one is in demigod's body. Who else is there sitting right next to him? Exactly. So there is Paramatma and there is Paramatma. Now Krishna is saying, firstly, few things Krishna reveals in this section, interestingly. He says, first thing, just like how Krishna is attracting the hearts, the minds of all living entities, demigods can't do. Nobody gets attracted to a demigod, that's why they go. They go to demigods simply to gain something, that's all. There is no feelings of love. There is no feelings of attraction. There is no affinity at all. Krishna says, this is how it is because they are also just yet another jiva. By nature they can't. Soul is always pleasure seeking. Soul always searches for Krishna only. It doesn't search for demigod. So Krishna says, however, if a person wants to worship to demigod, Krishna, first he puts the faith, the seed of faith in this person's heart to get attracted towards the demigod. Krishna does that. Now you can ask why. Well, that's what he wanted. Just like, sometimes a child may cry for something, throw tantrums, just to keep the child happy, the parent may agree to do something, even though it may not be to the liking of the parent. I think all of you have that experience if you have raised child. So Krishna's position is exactly the same. So first he sows the seed of faith here to get attracted to the demigod. Now whatever, let's say this person prays something, demigod should have the capacity to fulfill that. Krishna says, I as the super soul make sure that I infest that potency on the demigod to fulfill the prayers of this conditioned soul. So even demigod worship is actually conducted by Krishna only. Because why? Every prayer that we offer, even if this person offers prayer to demigod, who is in his heart? It's Paramatma again. So technically we can't run away from Krishna in any form, anywhere. Be it material world or spiritual world, we can't. In spiritual world it's more direct. In material world, it's a bit indirect, that's all. Otherwise, wherever you go, you'll always find people there. So Krishna says, this is the signs of demigod worship. A person is there, still Krishna calls them pious. Why? They are at least following the Vedic scriptures. And gradually, we saw the ladder. That's when the ladder kicks in. We start from Karma Kanda, then goes to Karma Yoga, slowly they'll come. But it's a multiple lifetime exercise. So Krishna says, even the 4 types of devotees, which we saw in the previous section, only the 1 and 4th category, it's easy for him to go to Krishna in this lifetime itself. For the other 3 categories, it's going to take multiple lifetimes. Krishna says that. Okay, so we need to go. Prabhupada says, somebody was asking Prabhupada, we have some people visiting our temple, they attend the programs, they just to take prasad, they just like to hang out, but they're not practicing Krishna consciousness properly. What's their destination? Prabhupada says, they were asking Prabhupada, so do they carry any spiritual credit? Do they make any spiritual progress? Prabhupada is saying that, yes, definitely they are. Their Krishna consciousness is started. And then Prabhupada says something interesting. Prabhupada is saying, see, our process of chanting 16 rounds of following 4 regulative principles and doing devotional service is to take all of us in this lifetime back to Godhead. If somebody wants to go back to Godhead after multiple lifetimes, that's a different thing. But Prabhupada is saying ISKCON is meant for those. That's what Prabhupada is saying. That was the standard. So Prabhupada is actually saying that one who takes up to this process fully of Krishna consciousness, not to this process, takes to the process of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada is saying then it's guaranteed that we will go back to Godhead in this lifetime itself. But if we pick and choose here and there, Prabhupada is saying, yes, you will make progress, but it's going to take multiple lifetime. That's what Prabhupada Krishna is also saying in the previous section. Of the 4 types of devotees, the 1, Artho Jignashu Artharthi, those who come because they are distressed, those who are inquisitive, those who are after fulfilling some material desires, for them it will take multiple lifetime. But one who is in knowledge, because he has knowledge, he immediately surrenders to Krishna, leads to humility, takes up the process of chanting, and then he goes back to Godhead in this lifetime itself. Okay? So that's how Krishna mentions. Now we may think, are there categories of people who worship demigods but they don't have material desires at all? Scriptures do mention few examples. There is example of Vallabhacharya. Vallabhacharya's story, if you actually see, he was Vallabhacharya. He is a devotee of Shiva, but he had no material desire. He just got attracted to Shiva, so he was worshipping Shiva. And then when Shiva appears in front of him, he asks him, so what boon do you want? He makes an interesting request. He says, give me something that you hold valuable. Then he makes him a Hare Krishna devotee. So that's how Vallabhacharya becomes a great Acharya also, and then he starts his Krishna Bhakti directly from Shiva. So here is an example of somebody who approached a demigod, but then the demigod in turn made him a devotee. Of course, Shiva, you can't just brush him aside as a demigod. His cat is unique. So that's one example. There is another example of a famous Vaishnava poet, Chandidas. Very famous Vaishnava poet, but interestingly, if you look at his name, it's Chandi. Chandi is one of the name of Durga. If you read Krishna book, 10th chapter, Krishna himself says, he'll be called, when he is talking to Mahamaya, at the time he says, you'll be called by different names, one of the name is Chandi. He's Das of Chandi. But in his case, something interesting happens. So every day he used to go to the temple to worship Chandi. So one day he searches for flowers everywhere he couldn't find. And then he comes to his brother's room. His brother is a Vishnu Bhakta. He's a Vaishnava. So he had the flowers which is not offered, but he mentally had offered the flowers to Vishnu already when he's plucking everything. So that day he takes the flowers, goes and offers to Chandi. Chandi comes out of the deity. And then he gets confused. I have offered you so many flowers, tons of flowers throughout my life. You haven't come. Why suddenly you are coming today? And then he says, today you offered me Mahaprasad Prabhu. And then she comes and then she glorifies Krishna, and that's how he comes to hear about Krishna. And he, again, by dint of that knowledge, he turns towards Vaishnavism and he becomes a great poet actually. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read his verses. So that's the Chandidas. Another example, you will see Keshava Kashmiri. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you see, he was a devotee of Mother Saraswati. And he's just after knowledge. But then obviously he was having a little pride. He was going everywhere. He didn't have material desires per se, but he was after knowledge. He was worshipping. But then Mother Saraswati, he then meets Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then Mother Saraswati comes and reveals the identity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he becomes a devotee. So there are examples, but very, very rare. Like you see, each one of them, they made a mark, so very, very rare examples. Usually, like 99.9999%, people go to demigod simply for, he'll still be sad. So they go to demigod simply to gain something. That's the purpose why they go. One at a time, yeah. Shankaracharya is Shiva himself. So Shankaracharya never had issues with accepting Krishna. But he had to fulfill the mission that was given to him, which is to confuse the people.
So what's the position of an atheist versus a demigod worship?
Atheist completely rejects even Vedas. Demigod worshippers, they have started at least. They are in Karma Kanda stage at least. And then in the ladder, that's the lowest rung, they'll climb up. So they are still considered pious. Otherwise, they can never be happy until they come to Krishna consciousness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atayeva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Shakali Ashanta. You know Bengali. Krishna Bhakta, he doesn't have any material desires, so he's always happy. However, you take people who are after materialistic desires or any siddhi, mystical perfections and everything, Shakali Ashanta, they'll always be restless. Why? They'll always be... because they don't know whether somebody is going to supersede them, whether somebody is going to take things away from them, whether they're going to lose the siddhi in the next day and everything. Okay, so that brings us to the last section, which is 26 to 30. And the section is titled Bewilderment and How Knowledge of Krishna Relieves One from that bewilderment and liberates them. So, if you go to, let's take a step back. If you go to verse 25. Verse 25, in many ways, it's similar to 7:13. So, they both are same. Krishna just re-emphasizes 7:13 in a slightly differently. So, this is verse 25. I'm never manifested to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I'm covered by my internal potency. And therefore, they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Just to expand on that verse, Krishna will speak the next section. So, 7:26 to 7:30 is just an expansion of 7:25. So in 7:26, Krishna says, O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. So Krishna is talking about his omniscience. He knows everything. 27, O Scion of Bharata, O conqueror of foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So naturally the question that will come is, why are we in this position? So Krishna is saying, as soon as you are born in this material world, this is the environment. You are born into delusion. We are born as deluded beings in this material world. That's why this confusion comes. However, as Krishna says, one who takes his shelter, in 7:14 Krishna says, one who takes his shelter can easily cross beyond this material modes. So 28, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful reactions are completely eradicated or freed from the dualities of delusion, and thus engage themselves in my service with determination. He is just repeating what Krishna said in 7:14. Okay, so 7:28 is also a key verse. Simply by practicing Krishna consciousness, karmani nirdahati kintusha bhakti bhajam. Bhagavad Gita clearly teaches us that simply if we practice, all our past karma, current karma, as well as the future karma, they will all be eradicated. Karma means karmic reactions. They'll all be eradicated, and then we'll be able to practice Krishna consciousness with Dridhavrata, with much determination. Technically, 7th chapter finishes with 7:28. (29 and 30), they are the seed verses for the next chapter, which is 8th. Krishna is going to talk about a special category of devotees who don't fall under the 4 categories which we saw before, who are not pure devotees. But this is a special category of people. They are called Yoga Mishra Bhakta. So this is Bhakta. This is 7, 29 and 30. So Krishna talks about this particular type of devotees who are they are not pure devotees. We have written here. Or they don't fall in any of the other 4 categories of people who Krishna touched on in this chapter. They are called Yoga Mishra Bhakta. Mishra means mixed. So they are devotees, but they are mixed with other conceptions. So these people, they don't have any material desire. So that's one attribute for them. They desire liberation. And most importantly, they understand Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, they are not going to Krishna for offering devotional service. Their sole motive is, I want to get liberated. So they are called Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. So 7, 29 and 30, and Krishna will elaborate about them in the next chapter. So we'll quickly read the translations. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation, this is 29. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death, take refuge in me in devotional service. As I said, they just want to get liberated from this material world. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Brahman here doesn't refer to, they have merged into Brahman. Brahman here refers to, in their knowledge, Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. They are Brahmanas. And then Krishna, then in the 30th verse, he uses 3 words to describe about his own qualities. Adi Bhuta, Adi Deva, Adi Yagya. And the next chapter would actually start with Arjuna querying Krishna. What do each of these terms mean? So those in full consciousness of me who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Thus ends 7th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
They are still not a devotee yet.
They are still not devotees yet, but they'll also climb up slowly. Any questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the culmination of Ashtanga Yoga gives realization that bhakti is the next thing that I have to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we have the knowledge that Krishna is himself saying, why don't you just take bhakti is the greatest without it. So us without having to perform Ashtanga, we can just take the bhakti. But are we qualified to take the bhakti? Like how do we prove to someone if they challenge us that you have to first do Ashtanga to then realize actually that you're supposed to perform it? You can't have it.
Well, you can tell them Ashtanga Yoga, it takes 60,000 years to perfect. So ask them how long they think they'll live. That's one way of answering. Easier way. Sorry? Okay, so the question is, if somebody argues saying, I'm not qualified to practice Bhakti Yoga, so I'll practice Ashtanga Yoga, become perfect there, and then I'll come to Bhakti Yoga. So you can tell them that Prabhupada always says the proof of pudding is in the eating. Try Bhakti Yoga for a few months and see where it takes. So that's where our faith in Krishna consciousness will get tested. So we need to have that conviction that if I simply bring a person to practice this, Krishna will take care. So we should have that conviction in Krishna, and Krishna will take care. And many times when you especially preach to new people, if you ask them what is let's say they become devotees, and you ask them what is the tip off point when they thought I have to become a devotee, it will always surprise you. You will think, it has to be something really deep, philosophical, turning point in their life or something like that, or some revelation they had, some experience they had. It won't be nothing. I just like to, hang out with you people. It will be something very simple. I like food, I like music. It will be something very, very simple. I feel peaceful, inexplicably, like that. So then we can see hand of Krishna everywhere. Okay. Any other questions?
You said that Vidya Dadhati Vinayam, you were explaining that. But we often come across devotees who understand that Krishna is supreme, but still don't have that humility aspect of that.
Yep.
How do we understand that? Why doesn't he grant them that buddhi as such?
Yeah, once somebody asked this question to Devamrita Maharaj. Okay, sorry, Prabhuji. So, question is, we were discussing how knowledge leads one to humility. However, we come across, even as practicing Krishna conscious devotees, it's very hard for us to acquire that quality of humility. So, how do we understand that? Or why is it so? Devamrita Maharaj, he answers when somebody asked that I'm trying so much to chant Hare Krishna attentively, but I still can't. And Maharaj was saying, why do you think you should attain perfection in this lifetime itself? When we take shelter of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it means eternally we are signing a contract with the Supreme Lord. You take me back to Godhead in this life, next life, in another million lives. We don't care. But we are taking exclusive shelter. No questions asked. Like that. So rather than thinking we should actually get it, we should, with the mood of humility, with the mood of service, we should pray to Krishna to bestow upon us all these devotional qualities. So one day we will also be able to live according to the instructions of the scriptures. Otherwise, we always have this lower nature, and none of us are, some maybe, most of us, let me make a safe statement, or not all of us are pure devotees. Not. So, you are? So, when we understand that, we are also just trying our best. We are putting our best foot forward, and then whatever Krishna comes, Krishna promises He'll carry whatever we like. The verse that gives us most hope is that. So, we can try, put our best foot forward and try. Beyond that, we take shelter of Krishna and hope for the best. That's all we can do. Okay?
But I sort of interweave bhakti philosophy into it, because a lot of the time they're beginners, or they've never been to a temple, or they've maybe never seen a scripture. So like in the 5 minutes at the beginning, I'll sometimes talk to them about philosophy. Is it okay to do that?
Yeah. So question is, Mataji teaches yoga, so it's hard for her to just introduce them to bhakti directly. So she leads them slowly. So question is it okay to do that? Absolutely yes. In fact, even as a practicing devotees, if you can, please do yoga for health reasons. Even it relieves stress, definitely. We do yoga in the ashram. But we don't use that to replace bhakti. We do that to support, basically. Keep yourself fit, be stress-free. Doesn't mean you need to do yoga to remain stress-free. It's not like that, but it helps. That's why whatever help that comes our way, we should take it. Just like, this is a microphone. It's a material thing, basically. Just like how you engage this in Krishna service and spiritualize this, same way, it's after all a yoga, spiritualize that by using in Krishna service, by becoming more fit. So definitely it's good. Even practicing simple principles of Hatha Yoga brings definitely one to the mode of goodness. And it is very conducive for practicing Krishna consciousness. Slowly, because of your association, they'll also become devotees.
I feel like it's kind of like a starting point for them. Because some of them, they come in and it's all new for them. And I'll even take the harmonium, teach them a little bit of chanting.
Yep.
You'd be surprised how many come at the end.
Yep.
And they go, oh, where is the temple? They actually ask, oh, where can I hear that Maha Mantra again? You know, can you tell me where to find the music? It triggers something in them, but I think if I went in and I preached at them full on, it could maybe put them off.
Yep.
Because I'm giving them a full class and teaching them what they expect, which is the physical stuff, but then kind of giving them a side order of bhakti at the same time. It kind of just, I don't know,
Good.
puts the seed of thought in their
Yeah.
head.
Prabhupada always says time, place, and circumstance. When they asked Prabhupada, how should I preach? It takes a little intelligence. That's how Prabhupada answers. So, yes, based on time, place, and circumstance. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any question? Yes.
Kabir, you mentioned that Shukadeva Swami heard Bhagavad from Shiva. Do you have a reference for that?
Yeah. Padma Puran. If you read even Gita Mahatmya book, the pastime is there, narrated. It's at the end. It's in Bhagavata Mahatmya also that pastime is given. Krishna refers to personal knowledge. Does it refer to Jnana Yogi or Jnana mentioned in 716? Jnana mentioned in 716. So it's not really Jnani. It's the person who has, as I said, Jnana has two aspects to it, or the Jnani which Krishna is speaking about, the fourth category of people that Krishna is talking about here. They have knowledge and they have bhakti also. Both they have, but of the two, they identify themselves more with bhakti than with jnani. So they already have some bhakti. So that's the category which Krishna mentions here. Okay, just a couple of quick announcements. Last week I was talking to Devamrita Maharaj. He's known as Devamrita Maharaj. He's a GBC. And I was telling about this wonderful group of devotees who are committed to reading regularly. Many devotees, they read regularly, they send text. Radharani Mataji, her whole family, they read and they text religiously. Yuresh Prabhu, so many devotees actually, they read. So I was telling Maharaj that here is a group of devotees who read religiously for at least 2 hours every week. Maharaj was very happy. And he asked, why didn't you invite me? Then I blamed Jitendra Prabhu. Maharaj, I did put the request, but he said your schedule is tight. And Maharaj said, like, no, it wasn't tight. Saturday morning I was free. I had Bhakti Tree program only the previous evening. I said, like, no, Maharaj, your schedule was tight. We did have a look. So Maharaj happily agreed to come and have the class next time he visits Sydney. So that's one thing. And as I was telling at the beginning of our course that we are following Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's material. We did actually inform him that about what we are doing here. Prabhu will be visiting in April. And he'll also be giving a class on one of the chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So you'll get to hear directly from the master himself. And final announcement, I just want to thank Venkat Prabhu and Harita Mataji for sponsoring the feast. Last week, he just walked into my room and he said, so Prabhu, how long will it take to finish Bhagavad Gita? I said, like, give and take, maybe 12, 13 weeks. He said, all right, I'll sponsor the feast for the rest of Bhagavad Gita sessions. So please chant, thank you, Venkat Prabhu and Harita Mataji. Let's chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So please bless them with Krishna consciousness, bhakti, whatever potency that you have. And please offer your heartfelt prayers for Shri Radha Gopinath. It's for their wonderful service to all the devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sorry, there's still a backlog of questions I have. I haven't replied back. As I said, we had a problem with the internet, but I'll get back to you by today. Yes. Later, it's already time up. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki,
Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Nitai Guru Pramanande.
How are you, Anna?